Peter Carson here with Mark Cashman and Stephen Rice from Microsoft. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for inviting us.
Great. Mark, we're going to talk about external sharing in SharePoint Online. Why don't you give us a brief summary on what that is and what it entails?
Yeah, specific to SharePoint, obviously it's inviting people that aren't a part of your company into sharing content, lists, Power Apps, all the stuff that you want to build, but it's really all about content. What it is that you want to get from the vendor, from your partner, if you're inviting clients to come into a space. They're not a part of your Office 365 tenant, so you want to invite them to onto your environment. So as you invite them to the site, you want to give them nice access and control, but limited to the scope of what it is that you're actually inviting them to. You're not inviting them to the whole tenant, you're inviting them to just the information that you want to share with them.
Very good. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
So Stephen, there's been challenges in the past with people that you've invited in that maybe aren't on Office 365 themselves, and just how do they sign in? Tell us a bit about how you've improved that and what that experience is like.
Yeah, so when I joined the team 5 years ago, we had, like I said, a bunch of challenges around here. You had to have an Office 365 account, and if you didn't, it was messy to say the least, and people really struggled with it. So one of the things we did is we introduced this one-time passcode experience where if you're not an Office 365 account user, you just have to verify your identity. So if I share with, say, Peter at envisionit.com, all we do is make sure, hey, are you actually Peter at envisionit.com? Do you actually have access to that email account? And then you can access the content. Keeping it nice and secure and a much simpler experience all away.
Yeah, so it's a much simpler experience, and of course it applies to, if you're inviting people to broader than SharePoint as guests to Teams in Microsoft Teams, or to use a plan in Planner, all applies on how you invite an external user to come into your environment to take advantage of all the things that you want to provide to them. But the ease of use makes it so that compared to the past, it's a lot easier for people to receive an invitation and then get access to what they need without getting them to have to jump through a bunch of hoops.
That's great to hear. I mean, that first experience, you've invited me into your site. If that's a friction-free experience, hey, I got a passcode, I just enter it and I'm in, and I can now do whatever you've allowed me to do. That's a great thing for the external user.
Absolutely.
So guys, we're here at SharePoint Conference. There's lots of great announcements. Tell me about some of the cool new things you've done on external sharing.
Yeah, I'll start with two and then maybe you can jump in. We have one really cool new feature from OneDrive called Request Files. So we've always had the ability for you to share securely, when you want to send a link to somebody and choose how you want that link to then be able to access that content. But now you can do it where you can actually request files securely, send somebody a request to access. So you send them a link basically that they click into, they're able to see their content and be able to see what you're requesting, upload their files and then submit it. And when they submit it, they're submitting it to me, the owner. They won't see anything else that's been requested from other people. But I can send that same link out to 5, 10, 15 people. If I'm doing a request for proposals or something like that, I can easily send a link to everybody. They can input their, upload their content. I'll see it all. They can only see what's theirs. It's super easy, really nice. Request files. The other thing is if I want to share information with you that happens to be in a PowerPoint, you can now go to PowerPoint Online. Let's say it's a 60 slide deck from one of these, like the keynote that we had here at the SharePoint. And I wanted to identify one particular slide I wanted to catch your attention to, or draw your attention to. I can now go into the slide and into the deck, right click on the slide and say, share a link to this slide. And when you click on it, it'll take you into PowerPoint Online, directly to that slide, right in the context that I wanted you to see, without having you to go into the deck, slide 62.
Where do I go? Yeah.
Exactly. So it takes you right to where I want you to go.
Nice. Stephen, others?
Yeah, so I've got two big ones that I want to kind of mention are really cool. So the first one is the new sharing reporting feature that we talked about. We hear a lot of, hey, it's great that you can share externally, but how do I know what is shared externally? And so we introduced this kind of new sharing reporting feature so you can see every unique permission and every unique link that's been created on a given site collection. So you can see, hey, Stephen's got access to document 1, document 2, document 3, these are the permissions he has, and it's exported in a CSV file, so it's really easy to process and build on top of using something like Power BI, Excel, whatever other CSV processing tool you want to use.
Cool.
And then the last one is one you guys are really familiar with. We're doing integration with Azure B2B with the kind of one-time passcode experience. So one-time passcode, great end user experience. Azure B2B, this really amazing platform for guest sharing and guest user management. We're just going to be bringing those two experiences together so you get a great end user experience and a great admin experience on the other side of things.
Very nice. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
So I'm going to turn the question kind of back around on you. How does the Extranet User Manager fit in with the external sharing features that we have in OneDrive and SharePoint and Office 365?
Great question, thank you. Really, where we see the differentiation is, you guys have done an awesome job from what we call a one-to-few or ad hoc style sharing. But let's say you're building a more formal extranet. You've got thousands of external users and you want to provide some governance and structure around that. That's really what we're about, is how do we provide that oversight, that ability to manage those users, who they are, where they're coming from, what permissions they have, and really provide some governance around that.
Yeah, it's a common question that we get is, okay, I get it, you can invite somebody via email, you type in their name and send it off, maybe do that 5 or 10 times, but how do I do that for an extranet that I want to scale to 10,000 people?
Exactly.
So maybe just share a little bit about that's possible, right?
Absolutely. We've got clients with many tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of external users. And when you get to that kind of scale, obviously you need some processes around that. We have things like bulk import, where you can take an Excel of users that you want to bulk invite in. We have the ability to do self-registration, so people can self-discover the extranet, enter their information, go through some approval process, even things like private registration links. Maybe you've got a site that you want to share with people, similar to your anonymous links, but rather than linking to a file, it's linking to a site itself, but let's still have some approval processes around that. We've even built custom connectors into Microsoft Flow, so if you want to get more sophisticated with your approvals around that, it's an awesome tool to be able to create those points of integration, not just into SharePoint Online, but even into your line of business systems, maybe CRM, other back-end systems from that perspective.
How would you compare, sort of an extranet of the past, a highly, walled garden, probably a separate farm, to doing it today? Probably a lot of saving of time and how you do it, but how would you think about how people, when they hear the word extranet, they may think, I have to stand up my own farm and do lots of crazy things to make sure that it's, isolated. How would you think about that?
I mean, we support SharePoint on-premises as well as online. That's kind of our history, and you're right. Many of our clients would have their intranet SharePoint farm, and they'd have a whole other farm they've stood up for external access. Now, Office 365 is already in the cloud, it's already exposed to the internet, it's got all the great security features from that point of view, so you're taking a portion of your intranet effectively and saying, well, let's make that the extranet. We don't need a whole other environment, we don't need to stand up all those boxes, we can securely bring people in from that point of view. We can do things like site provisioning and have a prescriptive guidance of how one of those extranet sites gets set up and what sort of permissions and things need to be in place. That's where we bring the governance in from that point.
Gotcha. So if we look behind us, obviously we get a sense of what the product is and what the offering is. What are you promoting at the show, and maybe if you can even tell us what's coming next?
Sure, I mean, we've got lots of things on our product roadmap. There's always a long list and we're prioritizing against.
Do you know anything about roadmaps and long lists?
No, not at all. We don't. There's certainly not a meeting I go to monthly where we talk through those things.
So you're well aware. I think the thing I'm most excited about is we've started work on a SharePoint Framework web part for managing users and groups. And the idea is to be able to embed that right into an extranet site. So in your example, you've stood up this extranet site, let's have an SPFX web part, lists who the group members are, allow people to invite, get the registration links, and even embed that into Teams. The fact that we can use that same add-in, not just in SharePoint, but in Microsoft Teams, where people are doing a lot of their work. They may have files, tabs from an extranet point of view, manage those users from that perspective. So we're very jazzed about where we're going.
Yeah, very nice. So you, awesome. SPFX in the extranet in SharePoint Online. Done.
Got it, yes.
That's great.
Well, this has been great. I appreciate you guys taking the time and coming to talk with us today.
Yeah,
it's our pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, have a good rest of the show.
Yeah.